Chronic pain often feels like a stubborn guest that refuses to leave, no matter how politely or impolitely you hint that the visit is over. People living with long-lasting pain frequently describe it as something that takes over their days, thoughts, energy, and hopes. Modern neuroscience shows that chronic pain is not merely a signal coming from an injured body part, but a complex brain-based experience shaped by attention, emotions, beliefs, and habits. This does not mean the pain is imagined or unreal. On the contrary, the brain is the organ that produces every sensation we perceive, and when pain becomes chronic, the wiring becomes oversensitive, a bit like a smoke alarm that goes off not only during a real fire, but also when someone burns toast. Understanding this gives us a way to change how the alarm system behaves, and that is where cognitive behavioral therapy comes in. CBT is not about denying pain or pretending everything is fine. It is about noticing the thoughts that make pain feel worse, observing the tension patterns that keep the nervous system on high alert, and learning practical ways to interrupt the cycle so the brain stops amplifying discomfort. In everyday language, it is the art of reducing unnecessary background noise inside the mind and body, so the pain signal is no longer magnified by fear, stress, or rumination. When a person experiences a painful sensation, the brain immediately evaluates its significance, asking whether this sensation means danger or damage. If the brain interprets the signal as threatening, it reacts by increasing muscle tension, directing more attention to the painful area and fueling thoughts like, "This will never stop," or "Something is terribly wrong with me." These thoughts create anxiety and fear, which further stimulate the nervous system, making the pain feel stronger. Then the stronger pain reinforces the fearful thoughts, which create even more tension, and the cycle continues. This loop of fear, tension, and pain is like a wheel that turns faster every time it completes another rotation. CBT helps by slowing that wheel, examining the thoughts that keep it spinning, and teaching new ways of responding that reduce tension and anxiety rather than intensifying them. People often assume that if pain persists, it must mean ongoing physical damage, yet chronic pain often continues long after tissues have healed. The brain learns pain through repetition, and once the pattern is established, it becomes easier to activate. The nervous system becomes jumpy, quick to react, and slow to settle. It starts working a bit like someone who lived for years in a dangerous neighborhood. Even after moving to a safe place, they might still jump at every sound. CBT does not blame the person for this. It simply acknowledges that the brain has developed a habit of overprotecting the body and offers tools to retrain these automatic responses. The first tool is awareness. People frequently underestimate how strongly their thoughts shape their pain experience. A day filled with catastrophic interpretations might lead to more tension and more suffering than a day with the exact same physical sensations, but a calmer reaction. Awareness is built through something as simple as a pain journal. Instead of tracking every minute of discomfort in a rigid pattern, the journal serves as a friendly notebook that helps the person notice relationships. What were you thinking when the pain increased? What emotions were present? What were you doing physically? What helped even slightly? This creates a map of patterns that are usually invisible when pain dominates attention. As people begin writing in the journal, they often discover that certain thoughts appear again and again. These thoughts may sound like, "I cannot handle this. It will get worse. This means my life is ruined," or I will never be able to do what I enjoy again. They feel automatic and unquestionable, almost like facts. CBT invites the person to pause and gently examine whether the thought must be true or whether it is a habit of the brain trying to predict danger. Reevaluating catastrophic thoughts is not about forced optimism or dismissing real challenges. Instead, it is a process of considering alternative, more balanced interpretations. A thought like, "the pain is unbearable and will only get worse," might shift to, "the pain is very uncomfortable, but I have managed it before, and my body has had better days. I can take this step by step." The new thought does not promise miracles, but it softens the fear, allowing muscles to relax and the brain to reduce the alarm response. Over time, this practice rewrites the brain's predictive model, so painful sensations are not interpreted as catastrophic, but as manageable experiences. Relaxation techniques complement this cognitive work. When the body stays tense, especially in the shoulders, jaw, lower back, or abdominal area, pain signals feel sharper. Tension sends messages to the brain that something dangerous is happening, which increases the threat perception. Simple relaxation exercises interrupt this process. One effective technique involves slow breathing with elongated exhalation. When the exhale becomes slightly longer than the inhale, the parasympathetic nervous system activates, telling the brain that the environment is safe. This alone can dial down the intensity of pain. Another technique involves imagining warmth or heaviness spreading through tense muscles. The brain responds to these images as if they were real sensations, reducing muscle guarding and allowing the pain signal to diminish. The important thing is consistency. Practicing relaxation a few minutes each day builds a stronger pathway of calm within the nervous system. A scenario might illustrate how these tools work together in daily life. Imagine a person named Daniel who has lived with chronic lower back pain for 3 years. He wakes up each morning with stiffness, and before even getting out of bed, he thinks, "Here it goes again. This day will be horrible." That thought triggers worry, which tightens his muscles, and when he stands up, he notices more pain. Throughout the morning, he monitors every sensation, fearing that any movement might cause a flare-up. Because his attention is tightly focused on the pain, he interprets every small variation as a sign of deterioration. By noon, he is exhausted, not only physically but mentally, from the constant vigilance. When his pain spikes, he thinks, "I cannot live like this. Something awful is happening to my spine." Each thought increases fear. The fear increases tension. The tension increases pain, and the cycle continues day after day. Now imagine Daniel begins using CBT techniques. On the first day, he writes in his journal. He notes the morning stiffness and his automatic thought that the day will be horrible. He notices that this thought appeared immediately and was followed by anxiety. Later in the day, he writes how his attention became narrowed onto the pain and how he feared worsening. Over the next week, he observes repeating patterns. He realizes that every spike in pain is preceded by muscle tension in his lower back and by thoughts that something catastrophic is happening. With the help of this awareness, he begins practicing reevaluation. When he wakes up and the thought arises that the day will be horrible, he pauses and reframes it to, "I am stiff because mornings are tough for me, but I have gotten through mornings before, and I can take this slowly." This does not erase the pain, but it prevents his fear from escalating. His body responds with slightly less tension. He then practices slow breathing before leaving bed, allowing his nervous system to settle. Throughout the day, he notices when his attention narrows onto the pain and gently shifts it outward by focusing on external sounds or engaging in a simple, enjoyable activity. At night, he writes again in the journal, reinforcing the new pattern. After several weeks, the spikes become less intense and his sense of control grows. The reason these changes happen is that the brain is constantly learning. Every time Daniel responds to pain with panic, the brain strengthens the neural pathways linked to threat. Every time he responds with calmer thoughts or relaxed breathing, the brain strengthens the pathways linked to safety. With repetition, the balance shifts from overprotective alarm to more stable regulation. People sometimes fear that using mental techniques means the pain is in their head, but this misunderstands how the nervous system works. All sensations, including those from injuries, inflammation, or nerve irritation, must be processed by the brain to be felt. CBT simply helps the brain interpret the signals more accurately, rather than through the lens of fear. Let us explore a longer and richer story to deepen the understanding. Imagine a woman named Elena who developed chronic migraines after a stressful period at work. At first, the headaches occurred once every few weeks, but over time, they became more frequent until they appeared several times a week. Doctors ran tests and reassured her that there was no serious neurological disease, but the pain persisted. Elena began searching for triggers everywhere, trying to avoid certain foods, lights, noises, and physical activities. Her world became smaller as she tried to protect herself from anything that might cause a migraine. Yet the smaller her world became, the more sensitive her brain became to ordinary stimuli. She developed a habit of scanning for warning signs, like a faint pressure behind her eyes, which she interpreted as a signal that a migraine was coming. The moment she noticed that sensation, she felt a wave of fear, thinking, "This is the beginning. Soon I will be in unbearable pain. I will be unable to function. I will fail at work." Her stress level rose. Her muscles tightened, especially in her neck and scalp. The increased tension contributed to the development of the migraine she feared. The fear itself became one of the triggers. This is a classic example of the fear-tension-pain cycle. Elena decided to try CBT. On the first day, she wrote about her headaches in her journal and discovered that her fear was often stronger than the pain itself. She wrote pages describing how much she dreaded the next episode and how powerless she felt. Seeing her words on paper helped her realize that her thoughts were painting the future in extreme terms. She then practiced identifying the catastrophic predictions. The next time, she noticed a mild sensation behind her eyes. Instead of jumping to the conclusion that a disabling migraine was coming, she paused and said to herself, "This is a sensation I have felt many times. Sometimes it leads to a headache, sometimes it does not. Even if a headache comes, I have survived every one so far. I can support myself through this." This slight shift calmed her nervous system. She also practiced progressive relaxation in the evenings, imagining warmth spreading through her neck and shoulders. At first, the changes were subtle, but after 2 months, she realized that her migraines had decreased in frequency. Even when they did occur, they no longer carried the same terror. Her life widened again. CBT also works for people whose chronic pain is linked to long-healed injuries. Consider a man named Robert who injured his knee during a skiing accident. Months later, the tissue healed, but he still felt pain while walking. Each time he sensed discomfort, he imagined the joint deteriorating. Because he feared further damage, he began limping and tightening his thigh muscles. These protective movements increased pressure on the knee, which increased pain, reinforcing his belief that something was seriously wrong. When Robert began working with CBT, he discovered that his pain was maintained not by ongoing damage, but by the way the brain interpreted movement as risky. Through journaling, he noted that the pain was always worse on days when he ruminated about the accident. He practiced telling himself, "My knee is strong. I am safe to move slowly and build confidence." Over time, with relaxation and gradual movement, the pain reduced. This does not mean pretending the knee feels perfect. It means reducing the alarm responses that magnify the signal. Chronic pain often disconnects people from their bodies. They may treat the body as an enemy or a malfunctioning machine. CBT encourages a different relationship, one in which the person listens to the body without fear, offers comfort rather than criticism, and allows the mind and body to work as a team. Relaxation exercises help rebuild that connection. Slow breaths and gentle imagery signal to the brain that the body does not need to stay in survival mode. When this signal becomes consistent, the brain decreases its sensitivity to pain. Let us imagine an extended scenario where multiple characters illustrate this process. In a community center that offers a free pain management class, people gather once a week to explore how thoughts influence sensations. The instructor, a calm and warm-voiced therapist named Leah, begins the session with a simple exercise. She asks the participants to close their eyes and notice where their bodies feel tense. The group includes Daniel with his lower back pain, Elena with her migraines, and Robert with his knee discomfort. As they close their eyes, Leah guides them through slow breaths, asking them to imagine sending kindness to the areas of tension. Daniel notices his breath softening. Elena feels a warm heaviness around her scalp. Robert senses his thigh relaxing. The atmosphere grows quieter, as if the room itself is taking a deep breath. After the exercise, Leah asks them to describe their thoughts when their pain increases. Daniel admits that he often assumes the pain means something is worsening inside him. Elena says she expects every small sensation to explode into a full migraine. Robert confesses he imagines his knee collapsing. Leah explains that these thoughts are powerful triggers that activate the brain's threat system. She says the brain reacts to a catastrophic thought the same way it reacts to an external danger. She encourages them to challenge these thoughts not by arguing fiercely with them, but by gently questioning their truth. She tells them that the brain often chooses the most dramatic prediction because it wants to protect them, but this strategy can backfire by increasing tension. Throughout the following weeks, the participants share their journal entries. Daniel finds that his worst days often start with poor sleep, and understanding this helps him stop blaming himself for every flare-up. Elena notices that stress at work plays a bigger role than she thought. Robert realizes that his pain decreases on days when he spends time with friends because he shifts his attention outward. Leah highlights these patterns, helping them see that pain is a whole-body, whole-mind experience influenced by many factors. She explains that CBT is like adjusting the dials on a sound system. The pain signal may still be present, but by turning down the volume on fear, tension, and rumination, the overall experience becomes less overwhelming. As the class continues, the group practices vivid mental imagery. Leah guides them to imagine a peaceful place. Daniel imagines a quiet forest with soft light filtering through tall trees. Elena imagines sitting by a lake at dusk with calm ripples moving across the water. Robert imagines a warm, sandy beach. Leah tells them to imagine their breath matching the rhythm of their chosen landscape. This kind of imagery communicates safety to the brain, helping it move away from the alarm state. When practiced regularly, it weakens the fear-pain cycle. Over the months, Daniel begins walking with less stiffness. He still has painful days, but he no longer panics when they come. Elena experiences fewer migraines, and when pressure arises behind her eyes, she responds with curiosity rather than dread. Robert feels more confident climbing stairs. They all recognize that CBT did not eliminate the pain completely, but it gave them tools to live alongside it without being dominated by it. Their nervous systems became calmer, their thoughts became more balanced, and their bodies learned to relax instead of bracing. A deeper exploration of the brain's role reveals why CBT works so well. The brain constantly predicts what will happen next based on past experience. In chronic pain, the prediction becomes, pain is dangerous and constant, so the brain expects pain and amplifies it. CBT creates new predictions like, pain is uncomfortable but manageable, enabling the brain to reduce amplification. Neuroscientists describe this using concepts like neuroplasticity and top-down modulation, but in everyday terms, it simply means that the brain can learn new habits. The more often a person interrupts catastrophic thoughts, practices relaxation, or shifts attention, the more the brain rewires towards safety. Many people worry that thinking about pain more often, as in journaling, might make it worse. But journaling is not about dwelling, it is about observing. It helps differentiate between the physical sensation and the emotional reactions. For example, a person might write, "My shoulder hurts, and I immediately thought I would not be able to finish my work today. That thought made me anxious, and my shoulder tightened even more." Seeing this written down creates space between the sensation and the thought. It allows the person to respond differently next time. Awareness is the first step toward change. Reevaluating catastrophic thoughts is another cornerstone. A person does not need to argue aggressively against the thought, but can ask gentle questions. Is this thought based on evidence or fear? Has the pain always led to the worst-case scenario? Are there moments when the pain lessened even briefly? Can I imagine a more balanced interpretation? This process calms the nervous system. Even a slight shift from "I cannot handle this" to "this is hard, but I have handled it before" decreases tension. Over time, such shifts accumulate, creating a new default response based on resilience rather than fear. Relaxation techniques anchor these cognitive changes in the body. Slow breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, guided imagery, and mindful attention to sensations all teach the nervous system to settle. When the body relaxes, the brain interprets the situation as less threatening, reducing the intensity of pain signals. The body and mind work together in a feedback loop. Calm thoughts support relaxed muscles, and relaxed muscles support calm thoughts. This creates an upward spiral that counteracts the fear-tension-pain cycle. Consider a final extended narrative to weave all these elements together. Imagine an older woman named Sophia, who develops chronic neck pain after years of working at a computer. She believes her spine is deteriorating, even though scans show age-appropriate changes. Every evening she sits in her chair, worrying that the pain will worsen with age. One day, her granddaughter introduces her to a CBT workbook written in simple language. Sophia begins journaling reluctantly, but soon discovers that writing helps her express her fears. She notices that her thoughts often exaggerate the danger. One evening she writes, "I fear I will become bedridden because of my neck pain. But I walked to the store today and even cooked dinner." She realizes the thought is not entirely accurate. She experiments with relaxation exercises, imagining warm sunlight spreading through her neck. After several weeks, she notices subtle improvements. The pain still appears, but her fear has decreased, making the pain feel less sharp. She starts taking gentle morning walks and finds that movement helps. Over time, her confidence returns. She tells her granddaughter, "I still feel the ache, but it no longer rules my life." This long journey of Daniel, Elena, Robert, and Sophia highlights how chronic pain is influenced by the brain and emotions, and how CBT provides practical tools for reducing the suffering associated with persistent pain. The techniques do not require special equipment or complicated instructions. They rely on awareness, gentle self-questioning, and relaxation. When applied consistently, they help the brain become less reactive and more resilient. Chronic pain may remain part of a person's life, but with these tools, the grip of fear loosens, the body softens, and life expands again.